So here, first problem, we have the outside, which is 8 times the whole thing. The whole thing is going to be 3x plus 12. Where is that 12 coming from? Well, if we add these two together, it's 8 plus 3x plus 4. Combine like terms, that's how we get that 12. And that's going to equal to 7, which is the outside part, times the whole thing. The whole thing is going to be 5x plus 9. Where does that 9 come from? Well, if you add these two together, combine like terms, that's where the 9 comes from. So from here, we're going to go ahead and distribute, and we're going to solve for x. So when we distribute, we end up with 24x plus 96 equals 35x plus 63. And so from here, we're going to do a couple of things at the same time. We are going to subtract 24x from both sides, and we're also going to subtract 63. So on the left side, once we subtract them, we are left with 33. The right side, we are left with 11x. And divide both sides by 11, and we get x to be 3. For the second one, we get the outside part, which is 24 squared, is equal to 18 times 18 plus x. On the left side, we get 24 squared, which is 576. On the right side, when we distribute that 18, we get 18 times 18, which is 324 plus 18x. And so to solve for x here, we are going to subtract 324 from both sides. Cancel. On the left side, we end up with 252. The right side, we're left with 18x, and that's going to give us x is equal to 252 divided by 18 is going to equal to 14. And looking at this last one, so we're going to approach it the same way. So we have this outside part, which is 3x squared, that equal to 9 times the whole thing. The whole thing is 9 plus 16, which is 25. So on the left side, since there's no plus or minus separating them, we're going to distribute the square to both of them. So we end up with 9x squared is equal to 9 times 25 is 225. Divide both sides by 9. We get x squared equals to 25. And then the last step is to take the square root, and we end up with x equals 5. So looking at this last problem, we have x times x plus 5, and on the right side we have 4 times 6. So when we distribute, we end up with a polynomial, or in this case a quadratic, which is x squared plus 5x equals 24. Move the 24 over, and we got x squared plus 5x minus 24 equals 0. So we're looking for two numbers, or we're trying to simplify this, we're trying to factor this out. And so the best way to do is, notice how the leading coefficient is 1, so we can go ahead and go straight into our factor form of x and x. So the only thing we got to figure out is what goes next, right? So the two numbers that when we multiply, we want to multiply to a negative 24, but the same two numbers have to add up to a positive 5. So if I'm multiplying and I'm trying to get a negative number, that means that I need to multiply a positive and a negative. The middle term, your b value, the corresponding sign is going to tell you that the bigger factor has to be that same sign. So here, two numbers that multiply to give you negative 24 and add up to positive 5 are 3 and 8. And we said the bigger number has to be positive. So positive 8, negative 3 multiply to give you negative 24, and they also add up to give you positive 5. So here my factors are positive 8 and negative 3. Now I got to figure out when are these equal to 0 individually. So in other words, when is x plus 8 equal to 0? Well, that's equal to 0 whenever x equals negative 8. When is x minus 3 equal to 0? That's equal to 0 when x equals positive 3. Now if I were to substitute both of these in here, this produces a negative value, which we don't don't want because we're talking about distance or length here. And so our only answer is x equals 3. And the same for this part, right? So we're going to set it up as these two parts against each other. So x plus 6 times x minus 1, and it's going to equal to 12 times 10. So on the left side, we're going to have to distribute both of those two things. We're going to have to FOIL it out. And so we end up with x squared minus x plus 6x minus 6. And on the right side, we got 120. And so we're going to combine like terms. We're going to move this 120 over. So we have x squared plus 5x minus 126 equals 0. So now we're in the same situation where we have to factor. So because our leading coefficient is 1, we can go ahead and go straight into this form. Now this number is telling me that I'm going to have to multiply a positive and a negative. This is telling me that the bigger factor, the biggest number, has to be positive. So from here, two numbers that multiply to give you negative to give you 126, but add up to 5 is going to be two factors that multiply to give you 126, and 5 is positive 14 and negative 9. And so when are these equal to 0? Well, this is equal to 0 whenever x equals negative 14. This is equal to 0 whenever x is 9. If I were to plug in negative 14 for both of these, we could produce a negative value or negative distance or negative length, so we don't want that. So in this case, my only answer is x equals 9.